No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to say climate change does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming from.
I understand you're upset that you don't know what Loper Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because
you know what the major policies doctrine is?
You know what, let me just
You're a
say
member
this
of
to
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden
being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well,
if you care about truth, accountability, and what's really happening inside Washington, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because what just unfolded in this congressional hearing wasn't just another debate. It was a full-blown clash over science, law, and the future of American policy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make one point, because I'm a strong believer in science and research, but it's my understanding that under the Trump administration, the agency has shed 20% of its staff, either wiped out or deeply slashed several programs, including the Office of Research and Development. I'm interested in the same way Ms. Pingree is about, I mean, quite frankly, you know, I thrive on research, biomedical research or any kind of research. I find it that this is not an administration that places a lot of eggs in that research basket, and that they don't have a problem with cutting that back, and it would appear that 20% cut in staff. Therefore, it would be interesting to know about the scientists, et cetera, and what direction they tell us we should be going in. Climate change, real, happening all around us. That's a quote, by the way. Climate change is real and happening all around us. That is directly from EPA's website. I imagine my shock when I learned that it hasn't been scrubbed from the website, although I fully expect to check in about a week, and maybe it will be taken down. I guess we'll see whether or not that's the case. I'm shocked because the science tells us that climate change is real and accelerating. Really, the effects and the impact of climate change are real. I don't know, you probably did see the report on Antarctica and the glaciers and melting and all this. It was an extraordinary documentary over this past weekend. This is an administration that is hell-bent, in my view, on ignoring science. Just 2 weeks ago, you reportedly attended a climate deniers conference. And in your remarks, you said, quote, "For those who wanted to criticize my appearance here before this group, it really shows the desperation of just how many walls have collapsed of this last line of defense," end quote. In Connecticut, we have seen increasing heat waves, extreme precipitation, devastating floods, impacting everything, farming, school closures, damaging homes and businesses. Climate change is harming our health and our environment, but is also harming Americans financially. This administration, however, is running the playbook on making the problem worse, focusing on policies that are handouts to the fossil fuel companies, like reversing the 2009 greenhouse gas endangerment finding, rolling back fuel emission standards for motor vehicles, and reducing methane leak monitoring requirements. The budget proposal reads like a climate change denier's manifesto. When climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up healthcare and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change? Loper Bright, Supreme Court case, you familiar with it?
No, maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask.
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper Bright says that we, as an agency, don't have the authority to get creative if Section 202 of the Clean Air Act.
No, but you don't have. Excuse me. You do not have the right to say climate change does not exist. That it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming from.
I understand you're upset that you don't know what Loper Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because
you know what the major policies doctrine is.
You know what, let me just
you're a
say
member
this
of
to
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden
being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you to
Michigan
tell me.
versus EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and
didn't.
you didn't like my answer because you
did
don't
not
know what
answer the
Loper Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because
this is-
you're
you
asking
wanna
me,
answer questions?
you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny. You want
No,
to.
I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
No,
I
Mr.
read the
Chairman,
Supreme
I don't have
Court
to listen
cases.
to this, and I would say
No,
this,
what you should do
that
for your
this-
constituents is actually read statute.
This budget is at real risk.
Read
Let
your
me tell
Supreme
you,
Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
you care
and
about
you
science,
tell
now
us-
you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
Because
science.
you don't know what Loper
You
Bright
are
is,
climate
because you don't know what the
deniers.
major policies
You are
doctrine is. Your
climate
message
deniers.
to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
The BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a whole
I made
lot of
I made
BS.
up Loper Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
Woe is right. What are you doing? Why
Wait,
are you helping
whoa.
polluters?
We're not going to get very far by talking on top of each other so that no one can hear. If you ask a question, you have to give the witness an
I
opportunity
do not
to
have to
respond.
have the witness attack me. Not when he's
You
here
have
as
to
a
give the
supplicant
witness a chance
for federal
to
resources.
answer the question.
I've asked a question, I don't have an answer.
Oh, so what, you want me to start over with the last question? What's your question? Do you have a new one?
My question to you is in what is going on in our streets today with regarding flooding, what's going on with our air quality, what is happening with in the Antarctic, how do you abandon what the EPA's duties are to protect Americans? And because, in fact, given the way you have dealt with the budget, it is a sop to polluters. You are really, it would appear, I just said what the president claimed at Mar-a-Lago is, you give me $1 billion and I'll make sure that you are made rich. I didn't say that. Your boss, the President of the United States, was clear on that. And that's what this is. That's what is going on here.
Okay.
So you don't have an answer.
No. Let me
move on
answer.
to a
Oh,
second
please, let me answer your question. Can I answer? Yes. Oh, thank you, Chairman. So it's interesting. You're saying that we're letting polluters off the hook.
Yeah.
Is that your position? Yeah. Okay. So since January 20th, in the first year of the Trump administration, we sentenced more criminal defendants, 100 compared to the 91 of the last year of the Biden administration.
Oh, God,
We obtained far more in criminal fees and restitution. In the last year of the Biden administration, the number is $57.7 million. In the first year of the Trump administration, it's $561.9 million. We also have obtained far more in criminal forfeiture. So in the last year of the Biden administration, they obtained, get this, $0.1 million. $0.1 million. You know how much we did?
Oh, tell us.
$1.1 billion.
Tell us. How many of those projects did
billion
Biden
dollars.
start for you? Okay. Look, I don't go back to Biden. I'm going forward.
Pounds of illegal pesticides. No, you're actually making an accusation that we're letting the polluters off the hook. Pounds of illegal pesticides blocked from entering the U.S. 1.65 million pounds. Previously, it was 0.96 million pounds. This is another one. Cleanup of contaminated soil and water. In the last year of the Biden administration, 1.99 million cubic yards. In the first year of the Trump administration, 59.3 million cubic yards. More value of injunctive relief, $6.02 billion. More civil enforcement case conclusions.
Okay.
You want to make the claim that we're just giving up on the
Glyphosate.
work of the Enforcement and Compliance Office. You don't-
Glyphosate.
Is that your question? I'd say don't. If your cup was filled with glyphosate, I'm telling you, as the administrator of EPA, don't drink it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to what we need to
I don't know what the
do
question
all
was.
along.
You're holding up a cup saying glyphosate.
You know,
Don't drink it. Don't inject it.
maybe you should try doing that. Okay, excuse me. Okay, I'm going to move on to a second question, Mr. Chairman.
I hope it's not as long as the first one.
Well, it wouldn't have been prolonged, except that, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, we come with facts. We have answers.
Go ahead.
It really is. They're really so blank arrogant, you know, when they're really making a mockery of what the agencies are all about. 40 years, Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Funds have provided low-interest loans to eligible recipients for water infrastructure projects. Money is paid back into the revolving loan fund. The state makes new loans to other recipients for high-priority water quality activities. This budget proposes $305 million in total for two revolving funds, an $852 million or 74% cut from the $1.2 billion enacted in 2026. This is under the guise of, quote, encouraging states to take responsibility for local water infrastructure projects, end quote. Quite the encouragement. Overnight, states face massive cuts to their budget, would be forced to make impossible choices to fill the gap. Connecticut would go from receiving an estimated $28.2 million in 2026 to only $3.2 million in 2027, an 89% cut. This approach was roundly rejected in the bipartisan, bicameral 2026 agreement for this bill. According to EPA's own assessments, our drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems need at least $1.3 trillion in improvements over the next 20 years. Funding that states use for critical purposes. They repair or they upgrade wastewater treatment facilities, well repairs, emergency actions that are needed in the aftermath of natural disasters to make sure residents do not lose access to safe, clean water. Town of Wallingford, Connecticut, use the revolving funds to upgrade their water pollution control facility to help remove phosphorus and put UV disinfection methods in place. Now, easy one. Is it generally more cost-effective to maintain water infrastructure in good standing or wait until it breaks down? For example, a water main rupturing and flooding a community, and then clean up the problem.
It's a huge problem in this country that you have aging water infrastructure. We saw with the Potomac Interceptor.
Mm-hmm. Given that states will not be able to plug the budget hole, I don't know if you've taken a look at the budgets of states.
Oh, we studied
these
everything
days.
that's
You
in front
do.
of us.
Well, I don't know if you studied the state of Connecticut's budget. What is your plan for communities when they inevitably suffer failures in their water systems, which is going to happen?
With all due respect to all of the amazing initiatives that you call congressionally directed spending, and we see firsthand that a lot of the projects that we're administering includes a lot of very good use as members of Congress set out in their desire to have this congressionally directed spending included in appropriations. We don't include that in our proposal. How much you might choose to raid the SRF on congressionally directed spending is a decision that Congress makes as you go through your deliberative process. I'm not saying that, passing judgment
Yes,
on
you
individual projects. No, actually, I'm not. But I'm saying I don't ask for your earmarks for you. That's a process that you all have. You're not going to see that in the president's FY27 budget. You're not going to see congressionally driven set-asides. The SRF fund would be flowing as a revolving fund if it wasn't continuously rated for earmarks and set-asides.
I see.
Well, you're the ranking member of the
89%.
Appropriations
Tell me
Committee. You
about
should
it.
understand that.
Tell me about it. And I introduced community projects a number of years
Right, and
ago.
I could sit here trashing them, but I'm not. You
Please
have a
don't,
process.
Because members would not, they were designed for a purpose because, let me just tell you, you got an 89% cut to the state revolving loan fund. You can't tell me that 89%.
And I'm helping you with your math.
Is going to community.
Right, and I
projects.
did not ask for your earmarks for you.
Hell no, God knows, listen.
Right, exactly.
We fund, we want, IIJA had huge investments in water projects, CPFs in water infrastructure. We don't raid the state revolving loan fund.
Yes, you do, absolutely.
No, we do not.
100%.
not.
That's your congressionally directed spending. You're not giving them out as loans. You're just taking the money out of the SRF and you're giving them to local communities. By the way, I'm not passing judgment on what you choose to say has merit because you're making the ask on behalf of your constituents. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking money out of it and you're giving it to local communities. So it's no longer revolving. It's no longer a revolving fund when you take money out for set-asides and earmarks.
I tell you, we were, I think on a bipartisan basis, we were able to deal with this before. It's, in terms of the restoration, and it will be, once again, what the Appropriations Committee does on a bipartisan, bicameral basis, that will address this issue. And so, I think you have a lot to answer for in terms of what you all are doing with regard to the environment, but that's a discussion for another day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In this intense exchange, Representative Rosa DeLauro went on the offensive, accusing the administration of gutting environmental protections, pointing to staff cuts, reduced research funding, and what she described as a dangerous rollback of climate policy. She argued that climate change is accelerating, citing extreme weather, flooding, and global environmental shifts, and warned that policies favoring fossil fuels are putting both public health and the economy at risk. But then came the pushback. Leah Zeldin didn't just disagree. He went straight to the legal foundation of the argument. He challenged DeLauro's claims by pointing to the limits of federal authority under the Clean Air Act and referenced major Supreme Court decisions that restrict agencies like the EPA from expanding their power beyond what Congress explicitly authorized. And this is where things escalated. Zeldin essentially argued that policy must follow the law, not political narratives. He accused critics of ignoring key legal precedents while DeLauro fired back, insisting that denying climate realities is irresponsible and dangerous. The exchange quickly turned heated, with both sides talking over each other, a clear sign of just how deep this divide runs in Washington. But here's where the debate gets even more important. When challenged on whether the EPA was going easy on polluters, Zeldin responded with numbers, pointing to increased enforcement actions, higher fines, and more criminal cases compared to the previous administration. That's a key point that often gets lost in the headlines. Then the conversation shifted to funding, specifically massive proposed cuts to water infrastructure program. DeLauro warned these cuts could devastate states and leave communities vulnerable. Zeldin's response? He argued that the problem isn't just funding levels, it's how Congress allocates that money. According to him, earmarks and political spending reduce the effectiveness of these programs, limiting the resources that actually reach states. And in a rare moment of agreement, even members of the committee acknowledged that removing those political allocations could significantly increase available funding. Here's the bottom line. What you're seeing here is the fundamental divide in American governance right now. One side pushing urgency and expansive federal action, the other demanding that every move stay grounded in the Constitution and the law. And whether you agree or disagree, one thing is clear: this wasn't just political theater. This was a real debate about power, responsibility, and accountability. Because at the end of the day, policy isn't just about intention, it's about execution, legality, and results. If you want more breakdowns like this, real analysis without the spin, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.